I would like to welcome today everybody to today's special webinar hosted by the ICEUR School of Political Forecasting. We're thrilled to have so many of you with us. And in just a moment, you'll hear from Professor Marek J. Druzdzel, the creator of the Bayesian forecasting software GeNie 5.0, and one of the leading experts in the science of decision making. We will have some time for questions. And if you have a question, I would ask you to raise your hand. So meaning using the raise hand function in the, yes, you can hear me. Great. Thank you for that feedback. And I see Marek joined us as well. Good evening, Marek.
Hello.
Or I should say, good day as you are in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. I was just making the introductions. So like I said, please raise your hand if you have a question and I will unmute you. Before we begin, just a few sentences about our school. We are the ICEUR School of Political Forecasting. We use real-world case studies to exemplify and convey cutting-edge skills in political analysis and forecasting. Our lecturers are experts from all around the world with not only theoretical knowledge, but hands-on experience in politics, economy, and the science of decision-making, like Marek, who is with us here tonight. And the school was born out of a think tank that is almost 2 decades old now. And this think tank, ICEUR, stands for International Center for Eastern Europe Research. We specialize mainly in armed conflict mediation, support of civil society in Eastern Europe, and most of all, creating, collecting, and communicating knowledge. Thus, I think it was only a question of time until we would found a school. And just one more thing before we begin. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Everyone who will stay with us until the very end will receive an exclusive gift. 3 powerful recorded lectures, normally valued at €200. This bonus is reserved only for those, however, who stay until the end, so don't miss out. And with that, I will hand over to our special guest tonight, Marek.
Well, thank you very much. What I was asked to do is give you a brief introduction to what we have been doing at Bayes Fusion, some of the software and what kind of things can be done with the software. So what I will do is maybe share my screen and then just show you the magic that can be done. Okay. Let me briefly prepare things here. Okay. Here we are, Zoom and share. I guess, okay, sure. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. So the software has been developed by a company that in which I'm involved. Is Bayes Fusion LLC. You can find us on the web. You can find our contact data, and also somewhere here is me, who is also involved in this company. And there are several resources that I will show you later if you want to look at things in depth. Max, please remind me how much time I have to give this presentation.
About half an hour.
Half an hour, okay. I can talk for 5 minutes and I can talk for 10 hours. So half an hour is a good compromise. So the main software that we have been developing, and we started development at the University of Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 10 years ago, we bought a license and continued the development of the software outside of the university. It was increasingly more and more difficult to develop high quality software in a university environment. So it is now a commercial product. We still offer it to academic users for free, just to continue our tradition. The software is already around 30 years old, so it's well tested, it's mature, and you can do a lot of things with it. Let me show you a few things that I think are essential for Bayesian network modeling. I assume you don't have a lot of exposure to Bayesian networks, so perhaps you don't know exactly what they are. Bayesian networks are essentially directed graphs in which variables, nodes mean variables, and connections are direct influences. What I'm doing now is I'm accessing our online repository of models, which you can, by the way, access also directly through our website. So if you go to support and go to the model repository, you will see that each of these models is available for interactive examination, browsing. There are well over 100 models here. You can open them, examine, work with them. But let me go back to the software. I'm accessing now the model repository, and it is divided into directories. Oops, I want to have smaller models. Let me show you a simple model that is it is a medical model, just to explain you what can be done with Bayesian networks. So as I said, Bayesian networks are directed graphs. Graphs in the mathematical sense. Graphs are when you have nodes and direct influences, connections, edges between them. So nodes denote variables, edges, arcs, they denote direct influences. So, for example, this is a medical model for diagnosis of liver disorders. There are 4, 8, 9 different diseases of liver that are modeled by this graph. There are, these are the diseases, let's say hepatic steatosis, can be present or absent, cirrhosis, 3 different states of that variable. And then there are risk factors and history data, like history of alcohol abuse that can lead to, can influence steatosis, hepatitis, diabetes as a risk factor for obesity, obesity as a risk factor for hepatic steatosis. The nodes in green are various symptoms of the diseases and test results. In this model, all of the variables are discrete, so they have a finite number of states. For example, jaundice, I'm double-clicking on this now. It has states present and absent. What you see here inside the nodes are the definitions, and they are numerical. Depending on the total bilirubin in blood, it's one of the substances that we produce and break off also in the body. Depending on the level of bilirubin, there are different probabilities of jaundice. Jaundice is this kind of sickly looking color of the skin, kind of yellowish, grayish, doesn't look very, very good, very healthy. So these are the distributions. Once you have a model like this, and this model can be created using expert knowledge or data. I'll show you in a moment how we can do it with data. Once you have a model like this, what you can do is you can perform calculations. For example, I observe a patient with jaundice. I can observe the value present. And I want you to look at the variables that are diseases, the yellow ones. You will see that their probabilities will change as I observe this. I'm observing present. There was some change in the probabilities of the diseases. A Bayesian network, its main function is to calculate the impact of observations. You make observations, and then that has impact on other variables. That impact is transmitted through the connections, through those arcs. It's calculated using essentially probability theory. You observe that somebody is a woman, for example. that will also have impact on the probabilities. Women have different probabilities of cancer and liver cirrhosis, for example, etc. So the primary function is to calculate the impact of observations. It's a full specification of the domain. So we have captured every interaction in this model, and we can do several half magical tricks. For example, we can show the strength of influence. When I press this button, I can see how strong individual influences are. That's essentially calculated from the numerical specification of the model. We can also support diagnosis. With this button, I'm starting a diagnostic session. I made 2 observations already. Let me clear them all. And now here are the different diseases from the most to least likely. Suppose a patient comes in and here are the possible problems with this patient. What you see here in this pane is value of information. If you want to diagnose this patient, the most informative is to check antimitochondrial antibodies, or just check the biological sex of the person, which is a very cheap observation, asking or just observing. Suppose it's a female, it's a highly informative thing. If you observe this, you see that there's a lot of change in this probability. If you observe something that is completely not very informative, you see that there is not much change. So this is supporting a diagnostic session. You all may have experience of calling a service. Let's say your computer is broken. You call them and say that something is wrong, and they start asking you silly questions that you think are irrelevant. Something like this can guide you in what questions to ask. What are the important things? And it's dynamic. Once I ask the sex of the person, the order of the other questions has changed. It's dynamic. So it's always adjusted to the situation. Now, let me show you some magic. Suppose you have data, you collect data. The data file that I'm going to open is pretending to be collected in a bank. Let me get it. I'm just dragging the file to the main window to open it. This data set is pretending to be collected at a bank. Different things that you may want to know about a client, for example, payment history. Has this client paid loans back on time? Was the payments excellent, acceptable, or not acceptable? What is the work history of this client? Reliability, income, assets, worth, profession, age, etc. And then every record here is one past customer, one past client. And we know for this client whether this client has paid back the loan or not. So a typical data set that you may collect over time in an organization. In this case, it's a bank, but you can imagine that being done in any financial, industrial organization. You can collect data on behavior of machines, of variety of things, insurance data, etc. So once you have a data set like this, what you can do is you can learn a model from it. When I first saw it, that was 35 years ago, I found it magic. Here's what happens. You start an algorithm. I'm picking an algorithm. I'm selecting which variables I want to use in learning. Press OK, and I have a model that has been learned from the data. Let me continue. Let me change the layout a little bit so that it's nicely visible. From left to right, we can see the structure. Here it is. This comment is just telling us about the algorithm used just for the future reference. Let me change the the notes also to view them as charts. The first thing that I can get from this is understanding of what is happening. So I know that some people pay back the loans, some people don't. And this graph gives me what can be interpreted as a causal structure among the variables. So now I can see that, for example, credit worthiness, which is whether a client pays back the loan, is directly influenced by reliability, future income, and age. That's it. I can now I can also look at the strength of the influences, look at that. So that the algorithm has learned the structure, learned the parameters, and I have a complete model that I can use further in a decision support system. I could place it with a special interface on the web, with a web interface, and a new client could just answer questions like, let's say, what is your age? Here is the age. What is your profession? And as you see, as I enter these data, as I answer the questions, the probability that this customer will pay back the loan changes. As you enter things, you have the probabilities are changing, and you can use these probabilities in making a decision. You could also do the trick that I showed you with diagnosis. If I assign this the role of where is that enable diagnosis. If I assign this node to be a fault, which is the target, and all the other nodes, I want to assign the role of observations. I could start a diagnostic session, and now if I want to find out whether this person will not pay back the loan, here are the most important, the most informative questions to ask. Were you reliable in the past? Have you paid back loans in the past? What kind of loans you had, and have you paid them back? Ratio of debit to income, so debts to income, payment history are other things, and they change. Oh, I already entered some data, so let me clear this. Actually, let me clear this. Start a new session. So where is that? Where do I start a new session? I think. Oh boy, I have forgotten where to. Well, we can always exit this, clear all the evidence, start the session again. So with credit worthiness, these are different ways of looking at it. I'm showing you the simplest. Future income is an important thing, reliability, ratio debit income. So these are things that are most informative from this point of view. So with learning, you get insight into the causal structure, into the interactions, what is causing what, how things are interacting with one another. And you learn models that you can use directly in a decision support system. Let me show you a decision support system built on the top of this kind of methodologies. One of our users, it's Symptomate. It's a company that provided an interface for online diagnosis. You can start an interview, and as you see, the interface is completely the way you want to design. Select all. I read. I consent. I'm doing it for myself. I'm a male, and I will enter my age and continue. I can enter data. I'm just entering garbage now. And in the process, I can diagnose myself. What is happening now is these are observations that are entered to a Bayesian network that's underlying this. And at some point, this program will tell me what could be possibly wrong with me. Suppose I have pain here in the stomach, etc. You can enter it using free text. I have a headache, mild headache, etc., etc. You can enter the things. Once you go further, you will answer some questions, and at some point you get diagnosis. So you see that the methodology allows us to build models that can be equipped with user interfaces that allow us to embed them into decision support systems. Let me go back to the software to show you just a couple of more things, just to show you the possibilities, and then we can essentially turn it over into questions. I'll be happy to tell more about any of these elements. One thing that can be done is, that's also one of the existing models in the repository, you can have hybrid models. So not necessarily are they all discrete, yes, true, or discrete values. Bayesian network models can also contain equations. In this case, this is a physical model of heating and cooling of buildings. And these are actually physical equations that are governing that process. There's heat exchanger that exchanges the heat between incoming air and outgoing. If I double click on this, I have a definition that is essentially a physical equation. There is a complete modeling freedom, so you can use any equations, any functions. Here is a set of functions that are known, that are allowed in the definitions. There are probability distributions, etc. And then inference is essentially the same thing. A Bayesian network calculates the impact of observations on other variables. So if I'm in the fall, let's say, as we are now, you see the probabilities are changing, and you see discrete probabilities, but you see also continuous probability distributions that are not parametric. This is a distribution that is empirically derived, non-parametric. So engineering financial systems can be modeled with this as well. Let me show you, for those of you who are modeling things that are time dependent, those of you who have education in physics, in systems of differential equations, let me show you something that we have just completed within the last year. You can also have an equivalent of systems of differential equations. So what I have shown you with the hybrid model is equivalent to a system of equations. We can also model systems of differential equations, or actually difference equations, because time is discrete. This is a well-known dynamic model known as predator-prey. Rabbits and foxes, they depend on one another. Let me show you the solution of this model. I'm selecting the rabbits and foxes to show you how their quantity depends on with time. We have 300 time steps. They are whatever you define them. Suppose they are days. And this is the number of rabbits. As the number of rabbits goes up, the population of foxes gets healthier because they have enough food. As the number of foxes goes up, the number of rabbits goes down because they start eating rabbits. At some point, the population of rabbits is too small and the foxes start dying, which leads to, again, increase of the number of rabbits. It's a system that has been observed in nature, confirmed by empirical data, interdependence of species. If you look at a Wikipedia article for this system, you'll find precisely these plots. We can also plot something that is known as phase space diagrams, which are essentially dependence of the number of rabbits as a function of the number of foxes, and this is what the dependence look like. Why would this be of interest in a system like this, in Bayesian networks, is that you have a complete modeling freedom. You are not bound, you are not limited to systems that we know how to solve symbolically. The solutions here are numerical, so you can experiment with any type of differential difference equations. Here is another model that is well known in physics. It's the Lorentz equations. If you look at this, this is a set of three variables with three difference equations. If I double click on any of them, I get the equation. This is what it looks like. You can find these equations again in any textbook on Wikipedia. You see the chaotic behavior. Let me show you the temporal values of the three model variables, X, Y, and Z. Looks a little bit chaotic. And so let me show you the, oops, I think it's a problem in the library that we've been using. Okay, here it is. I can also show you the beautiful Lorentz equation butterflies in the space diagrams. Again, these are derived from the model and derived numerically by means of a stochastic simulation. You can select any pair of variables and see those beautiful butterflies. Just one more thing, just one last thing before I turn the floor over to you, is there is also simplified version of the model of the modeling environment that we call GeNie. Q for qualitative, GeNie. It's a system that allows us to build models qualitatively with a minimal number of numbers and with every variable being binary, true, false. So it's really very, very easy to build models. Let me show you a couple of models from the repository again. Let me show maybe, this is a simple model built with GeNie. Every variable is has just two states, true or false. So it's very simplified. And you can build these models very quickly. The number of parameters is very small, one parameter per arc and one parameter per node. So here we have, let me double click on the background to see how many we have. We have 14 nodes, 17 arcs. That means that we have 14 plus 17 parameters, 31 parameters. That's it. Specify a model like this. We can perform inference. What if we observe increased load? It's a model that I built very quickly in half an hour before visiting an airplane manufacturer. The story that I told is, suppose you are building an airplane for a client, and the client suddenly comes to you and says, I want the airplane to have increased load. I want it to carry more. Well, that you see the colors indicate things that you may worry about. Green generally is good, red is bad. You can assign the colors, and you can see what happens when you observe values. Suppose the client comes and says, I want the plane to be also faster. You see the probability of technical problems increases, but the profits are still in green. So again, fast building, and then the use is, you can use it in group decision-making sessions projected on the wall. And instead of talking about apples and oranges, about different things, you can focus on the model. If somebody disagrees, you can change the parameter. You can make modifications very quickly, and you can discuss about what happens if something happens that you can again perform the inference about the value of observation, value of manipulation. This is the most important thing to observe or to manipulate if you want to impact the target, the focus, the profits. Being seriously over budget is the thing that will impact the profits most. You can specify whether you can manipulate something, set the value, or only observe. This type of models are quick to build, and they can be used in group decision-making sessions. Let me show you a model that was created by people at Naval War College in US years ago. That was like 20 years ago or even more. Let me get that model quickly. It's not in our repository, but there's nothing really secret about this. It was more of a toy model, but they were building a model of a certain region in the world from the point of view of US government, US military. The focus was civil stability and durable peace of that region. And there are many aspects. There is peace if there is a good economy working, security, good governance, environment, telecommunications. These are different submodels of that model. Telecommunications have different aspects also. Radio, internet, telephone, economy has also different aspects. And here you can also ask the question, what can I do in order to impact the stability? Again, the model, the author, who was a colleague, Brett Hayes, he told me that he spent a day on this, but I suspect he knew really the domain, so I think it may be more than a day. But considering that this contains 100 variables, it's impressive. The second application of this system is that you can easily build a model very quickly, but then you can export it to GeNie. I'm exporting this simple model, and I can open it in GeNie to elaborate further. Now, this model has many more parameters because it's already quantitative. So this model will have 110 parameters. So many more. And the tables, probability tables, are bigger, as you will see. No longer one number per arc, per node, but it is a fully quantitative specification. And you can expand that model, make the number of states more, work on it further. So that's the second application of QGenie. I think I have exhausted my time. I have shown you very quickly some of the capabilities of a modeling software like this. And I guess I can talk.
No, thank
for
you.
a few
Thank you
hours
for this
more
great
if needed,
overview.
I'll be happy to answer your questions, because maybe it's the audience that should drive the remainder of the session.
Yes, thank you for this great overview, and especially thank you for the last example. It was somehow rooted in politics, the one about the regional stability, because this is what we will be dealing with all upcoming semester long. So yes, I would like to open the floor for questions, if there are any. Yes, there's a question in the chat. I can read it to you.
Thank you for the overview. How could one visualize the R2 of these models? What is R2? Please help me with that. Or is it R squared?
It is R squared.
R squared as a statistical measure of explanatory power. Is this what is meant by that? Yes. Okay. That's really a good question. You know, how can you evaluate these models? And there is really no straightforward answer. First of all, these modeling techniques are based on a Bayesian view of probability theory rather than classical. So the parameters like p-value, r squared, definitely are not used here. So, and you know the difference between the classical and Bayesian approach. Does this, I'm not sure if I could, okay. There's another question. Can you explain the role of Bayesian statistics and modeling in politics? Okay, let me show you just a couple of slides to kind of illustrate this idea that we are dealing with a completely different way of approaching problems than classical. I mean, where am I? Okay, here it is. Let me open this. I have two screens, that's why you don't see what I'm doing. But what I want to do is I'm looking for a couple of slides that I wanted to show you. This is included modeling, and so just a couple of slides. This is coming from a course that we teach to our users, but I wanted to just show you two slides to explain the difference between Bayesian and classical statistics. Bayesian comes from the name of an amateur mathematician, British priest, Reverend Thomas Bayes, who lived in the 18th century. He wrote two papers in his life, and the second paper was published after his death. It was brilliant. He wasn't sure of it, but it was brilliant. I recommend this book, and if you don't want to read the book, which is easily written just for the general public, there's a 1-hour video that of the author that explains what's in the book, The History of Bayesian Approach. In any case, you see the long title. Bayesian approach is has been very successful. Some people call the 21st century the century of data, and other people call it the century of Bayes. But actually, both Bayesian approach and data are important. Now, what is the main difference between Bayesian approach and classical? It's the definition of probability. In the classical approach, probability is the limiting frequency. So when you say probability of a coin falling heads is 0.5, you mean that in an infinitely long sequence of coin tosses, the proportion of heads is going to be 50%. In the Bayesian approach, Bayesian view, probability is a measure of personal belief. So I can say that probability of this coin here, I don't have one, but imagine that I have one, it's 0.4 to be heads and 0.6 to be tails. I have the right to say that. Of course, that would be silly of me, given that the coin is symmetric, it's not biased, etc. But that gives me a license to express probabilities like this one, probability of a nuclear war. A classical statistician will, in English we say, will throw up his hands. That means that he is completely hopeless. I cannot say anything. The question doesn't make sense to me. I cannot even imagine the repetitive character of that situation in the world now. And a Bayesian can easily tell you a probability. Bayesian approach gives you a license to express any probability because a probability is a measure of belief. It sounds terrible, like a mess, 1960s. Everybody is right. There are many truths, but it's not that bad. Essentially, if you have frequencies, if you have data, you should absolutely use them. If you don't, Bayesian approach gives you a way of dealing with those problems, with problems that classical statistics cannot deal with. So you can construct a model purely based on expert knowledge, And now the question is, what is this model worth? Of course, that was the million-dollar question that Gustavo Silva, I see, asked, essentially by asking about R squared. So now, first of all, let me tell you why is this not a big problem, the Bayesian approach? Because Suppose I'm Bayesian and I believe that this coin has probability of 0.4 falling heads. If I keep my eyes open and I use Bayes' theorem to update my probability, and I observe 10, 20 coin tosses, I can assure you that my probability of heads will very quickly converge to 0.5. So essentially, if there are data, if there are observations, I will be very quickly converging to what the classical statistics tells me. But in all situations in which I have no idea of the data of observations, I can still perform inferences. And that's the source of incredible success of the Bayesian approach. Look at the long title. It is indeed triumphant. So now, coming back to the question, how do you know if your model is worth anything? Well, there are different ways of verifying it. Suppose you have this predator-prey model. Actually, when Lotka and Volterra proposed the equations, they had data collected in one of the ecosystems, and they observed that that behavior between, I don't know what they were, foxes and rabbits or wolves and deer, I don't know. So you can verify things. If you learn from data, let me close this and go back to the model that I learned from data. Here's the model I learned, right? And I have the data. What I can do is I can suppose that my model is obtained using just expert knowledge. In fact, let me close this model because the data were generated from an existing model, which I have here in my on my disk. It was created by a student in a class. Here is the model that she created. If you look at this model, you see all the probabilities are very nice. She got the probabilities from her head. Okay. So now the question that we ask is how valuable is this model? Now, it is as valuable as it is able to predict the creditworthiness. Yes. Can I predict it? So what you can do is you can test it on the data that are collected independently. Suppose I collected this data set independently, and I want to test my model. I could do the following. I could validate this model. This dialog is just checking if the names of the variables in the data are the same as in the model. They are the same because between us, I generated the data from the model. I want to test on this. Suppose the model has never seen the data. I want to be able to predict creditworthiness. Here we are. The test is done. The model has the accuracy of 72% in detecting negative creditworthiness. So people who are not going to pay back, it has sensitivity of 55% roughly, and specificity of 87%. You see something that is known as machine learning as confusion matrix. These are correct predictions on the diagonal. These are wrong. The actual creditworthiness is positive, but the model predicts that it's negative in 700 cases. ROC curves, if you don't know them, absolutely a great idea to learn them because these are describing the nature of the model, the problem. Finally, calibration, if the model outputs probability 0.7, is this really 0.7? So it's verifying the probabilities coming from the model versus the frequencies in the data. So you can essentially, as Americans are saying, the proof is in the pudding. You can verify your model. In fact, this approach, when you think about this, R square, what does it tell you? If somebody asks you, okay, I have a model, regression line that I derive from the data, and R square is 72%. Do you know the accuracy of that line? Classical statistics, the classical approach to hypothesis testing tells you the probability of the data given the null hypothesis. The Bayesian way of approaching it and testing it tells you what you want to know which is how likely is my hypothesis true? If I get the prediction that somebody will not pay back, how likely is he really not going to pay back? It's telling you the other way. Once you look at it, I'm quite confident that you will find it more appealing to the common sense, to the intuition.
Professor,
I
I'm sorry, I have to look at the time. I will pose one more question from the chat. An anonymous attendee is asking how this program and forecasting as such can be helpful in business area to businesses.
Let me find the question.
How it can be used. It's
Can be helpful in business area.
From the bottom, yeah.
Well, you just saw an application. If you collect data, and most businesses these days collect data. 21st century is the century of data. You could analyze the data. Of course, there are many methods of analyzing data. Bayesian networks are very close to statistics and also philosophy. Philosophers, statisticians, computer scientists are developing methods of learning these graphs from data. These graphs can be given causal interpretation. So you can answer the question, what's going on? Why are my clients leaving? Why are they not staying longer? Why are my clients not paying back their loans? You can try to get insight. You can also build predictive models. You can, for a new client coming from the same population, how likely is that client to pay the loan? You can extend it to decision theory and model utilities and decisions. You can optimize decisions also. So there's a variety of ways. In business, many existing software for Bayesian networks are discrete Bayesian networks. I showed you that we can have hybrid models. So in many businesses, you actually have equations describing money flow and probability distributions. You can model that. So there's really a variety of ways this can be used in business. A good number of our clients are using it for risk prediction, risk of, for example, pipelines. Here are some models that our clients have given to the repository. For example, I think this one is a prediction of pipeline corrosion. As you see, there's a dynamic component changing in time, distributions. I don't even know this model, but I know the scientist who has developed it. So many applications, engineering, finances, I guess. Medicine is a great area, although it's a little bit conservative. Physicians think that they can do it better. Evidence is saying to the contrary, but it's a conservative thing. Military also, of course, GeNie, quick modeling. You don't have the time to model probably precisely. You can have a rough model just to discuss, to brainstorm. So many applications. That's the short answer.
Great. Thank you for all of this insight, all this information, and for this kind of short but still in-depth look into the program. As we're nearing the end with our time, I would like to continue or end on some information about our school. If any of this has excited you or has left you wanting more, you will like to hear what I have to say next. I just have to pull up my presentation. 1 second. So yeah, what you've just experienced is just a glimpse of the depth of the tools, of the frameworks that you'll be able to master in our upcoming winter semester course at the ICEUR school, which starts next Monday already. Marek, who you just heard, will also hold 2 lectures during that winter semester. So I think it's a great reason to sign up. And we've designed this upcoming winter semester to consist of more than just simple lectures, but first and foremost, it's about interaction like you've just seen. There's a lot of time for questions, for debate, for discussion. And the winter semester is a structured path where you work directly with top scholars, experts, analysts to learn how the global order is being reshaped and how forecasting methods can be used to navigate that political and economic landscape like we've just seen in the examples shown by Marek. We have free packages available, which you can see on our website. And I will try to share it in the... Okay, there's no chat function, but if you would please visit ICEUR-school.at/winter semester for more information, or simply Google ICEUR School. I guarantee you that you will find us. So we have 3 packages, starting from Strategic Observer, which is a simple access to the recorded and live lectures, and a certificate of attendance upon completion. There's an Analytical Authority, which includes much more discussion and much more interaction, homework evaluation, practical exams, and there's a Global Policy Architect, which will be tailored upon request. And going forward, we have a special offer for everyone taking part in this webinar, which leads me to my next slide. If you register within the next 24 hours, you'll receive an early bird discount on the 2nd and 3rd packages, which I've just shown you. And on top of that, we're including an exclusive bonus, a 12-month subscription to the GeNie software after the course ends. So starting from the end of November, after the semester ends. So you can continue applying everything you've learned. And please keep in mind, the number of seats is limited to ensure interaction stays works, so it's not oversaturated, and we can give you direct feedback. And there's also a QR code that you can scan to access these features. So summing up, here's the links to our website and social media. And so click the registration link and secure your place in the winter semester program of ICEUR School. Learn from leading professors like Marek, gain practical tools, and join a global community of forward thinkers. And of course, receive a diploma or certificate from an international school in Austria to bolster and accelerate your career. And because I promised the package of 3 lectures by renowned economist and sociologist Vladislav Inozemtsev, I would kindly ask you to post your email addresses as a question into the chat so we can send you the access to these lectures. And that's all from me. I will leave this lecture a little bit open, a little bit longer, so you have time to type in your address. And I want to thank everybody for taking part. Thank you, Marek. And I'm sorry, of course, I want to leave the floor open for questions about the school as such, if there are any. If not, I will again say thank you to Marek and to everybody for taking part in the discussion. And good night, or Marek, good afternoon to you. Thank you, and see you soon in class.